Hey, congratulations on all your projects. You are quite one busy person right now.
It's makes for not much sleep, but it's worth it.
I know it's actually funny. I think one of your friends mentioned you at this previous red carpet, pink carpet at prom act recently that you were there to support Jason.
Yes. Yes, Jason is absolutely amazing. I got to go to the prom pack premiere with him and he's just hilarious in it. So that was so fun.
Terrific, terrific. Well, let's start talking about some of your projects. I'm gonna go with some of your more recent ones. I guess you just finished shooting what Monster High 2? What was it like returning to that production?
It was so fun to return to it because, the pressure of the first one and hoping we make something people love because Monster High is a huge franchise with a huge fan base and it's never had a live action before. So through all the iterations it's gone through, there's never been, humans playing the monsters on screen. So that was a bit stressful. But coming back to the second one, we all knew our characters better. We knew each other better. So a kind of running joke on set was that it was like we were coming back to summer camp.
So are they expanding the role of Ghoulia for you in the sequel?
Well, I can't say much about it, but I can say that I had a really fun time on set, and every character got to really like dive into it a little bit more, and the power of friendship and the ensemble cast really remains true.
How about this? Is there singing and dancing? There has to be singing
There
and
is, I
not
can tell you, I can tell you that much. There's a lot of singing and dancing, and in my opinion, it's elevated even from what we had in the first movie. So the choreography has definitely stepped up a notch, and I'm very lucky that I already had a dance background.
Hey, tell me what the process is like getting into makeup for Ghoulia.
It's extensive. Um, I once had a 2 a.m. pickup for getting into hair makeup because it takes about 2 hours, 2.5 hours sometimes. Because it starts with, getting a wig cap on. So my hair goes away and I look bald. Then I head into makeup and get spray painted green. And then once it looks like my skin is green, they've got to throw makeup on top of that so I don't look like Shrek. And then I go and get that wig slapped on my head. Then I go back to makeup to make sure that the wig didn't get messed up my makeup, and then I go back to hair to make sure that the makeup didn't mess up the wig. And it's a long process, but it's nice. Sometimes I find myself nodding off during it if I had a late night the night before. But it's really crazy to watch myself actually become the character.
Well, I certainly hope that they expand your role because in the cartoon series she's very techy and
Yeah.
that's what we loved about Ghoulia.
I love Ghoulia. I love getting to dive into her character and, become the next generation of this role that was a big part of my childhood growing up. I was obsessed with Ghoulia. So it's really crazy to get to like be her now.
Most excellent. Now you're also in an awesome series, as like we mentioned at the beginning with Jason. In fact, is in this series called Lucky Hank, which is on what AMC.
Yes, so Lucky Hank is on AMC, and I got to work a lot with Jason Sakaki and also Jackson Kelly, and it was so fun to be on that show.
Now tell us about the character that you play on this show. You are what, a college student?
Yes, so I play Ava. For everyone who tuned in to episode 2, you got to meet her there. And I help form the Excellence Committee with Barto and Lester. And we are some students that are, in my opinion, a little bit delusional, but we've got the right idea. The execution is interesting. But I've got some ulterior motives that I think are pretty fun.
Oh, so there's actually more to your character than just being part of this trifecta committee.
I mean, I think the dynamic of the trio is hilarious and one of, I'm a bit biased because it is my character, but one of my favorite parts of the show. And I'm excited for us to show up on screen again and for people to kind of get a little bit more into the Excellence Committee.
I know it is a hilarious show because Bob Odenkirk, carries that show as Lucky Hank.
Oh my God. He's just, watching him work on set was just the best masterclass you could ever get because he's so professional, but also so humble and kind, and just really becomes his character. And you would think that he'd been playing this character for like 20 years already and was super comfortable with it because he just does it so perfectly.
Now, I have to ask because like some actors do have the experience and some don't. But this is sort of a your character is a college student. Did you ever have that college student atmosphere experience yourself?
The funny thing for me is I've actually been homeschooled my entire life. So although I am college aged and I'm able to bring that sense of reality to the character, I have never been to university. But luckily, I did actually audit a university class while doing the filming of Lucky Hank because A, I wanted to prep for that. And B, even though I can't actually go to university because I'm too busy, I love learning. I love learning about everything going on about the world, and I love reading. And so going to university is something that I've thought would be really fun, but just don't have time for with my careers. So it was fun to get to do that in the middle of filming and get to kind of bring that sense of reality to the character.
So it's both the production for Monster High 2 and Lucky Hank. Is that all completed now?
That's done now, yeah. So I filmed Lucky Hank kind of in the fall, and then I got to go straight into Monster High after Christmas.
Wow, most excellent. That is the big question now for yourself is how do you find the time for all your projects? Because from what I actually gathered is that you have a book coming out. I mean, how did you manage to pull that off?
I mean, I've spent a lot of years on the book. I'm a perfectionist, and I actually wrote the first draft when I was 15. So it's been years in the making. It was way too long at first. So actually book one is half of what was originally book one, and then book two will be the other half because when I finished, I was like, wait, this is two books. But I didn't tell anyone that I was writing a book because I love storytelling. Since I could talk, I would say that I was watching movies in my eyes and I was just creating a story for myself. And now, I just write those stories down and that's my books. But I didn't want the story to go away because it was based on this beautiful dream I had when I was having a period of life where I was a teenager and I was struggling with society's perception of me being in a field where acting and dance, it's a striving for perfection and there's so many eyes on you, and already being a teenager is hard, and then you add in social media, and then you add in being an actor, and then you add in being a ballerina. And so I needed an escape from real life, and I found that through writing. And I didn't want this story and the secret world that I had created to go away. And so I wrote about half the book under the covers at night after my sister, who I shared a room with, had fallen asleep so that she wouldn't know I was writing a story. And then the other half on a cross-country train trip across Canada, while telling my sister, no, I'm just journaling on my laptop. And then I sent my mom a 600-page novel that she just randomly got in her email and said, hey, I did a thing. And now here I am.
Wait, when did you finally reveal this to your friends and family that you wrote a book? Is it just recently, or was it just a while ago?
It was a while. It was when I finished the first draft because I didn't intend to actually do anything with the story. It was almost just fan fiction for my dream. It was just a fun place for me to, go and watch movies in my eyes. And then once I finished the book, I realized, wow, I actually wrote a full manuscript. I can't just not do anything with this now. And I sent it to my mom because she's, you know, an English teacher. She's read a lot of books in her time. And I was like, she'll know whether I've got anything here. And then, of course, came the rounds and rounds and rounds of edits, about, you know, 5 rounds of edits, and then querying, and then having people come back to me and say no, and then more edits, and then querying again, and having people come back to me saying, good story, but way too long for a YA debut. And then me realizing, that's because I have 2 books in here, not 1. And so I had to move some things around to make it work as 1 book. But then I queried again and got my publisher.
Oh, wow, that is an amazing journey.
Yeah.
So tell me what this book, the story synopsis, is about. I'm getting the title as Stars and Swashbucklers is the title of your book.
Yes. So it's set in a futuristic fantasy world where Earth has shattered into islands floating between the stars, and ships sail through the stars like they right now sail across the ocean. And our story follows Anya Marcox, who is an average girl who is stuck in steerage aboard a cruise ship that's sailing across the islands, when she ends up in the middle of a plot to find a relic that could change the fate of all the islands. And she's always wanted to be a privateer, so she seizes her chance to find this relic, even though it pulls her into an underworld of rebels and royalty and evil beings and her own nightmares that may be more real than she thought they were. And the nightmares aspect is interesting because it actually pulls on my own OCD that I did not know I was writing into the book. But when I read it back, especially my, you know, final version, I was able to see, oh my goodness, this actually takes on mental health. Because that's a big thing for me, is teen mental health, because as someone with OCD, it's something I've struggled with, and something that I hope my stories can be an escape for kids, the way that stories have always been an escape for me. And there's not enough fantasy novels that deal with mental health. And so I'm really excited that my book does that in a way that doesn't, you know, bash you over the head with it, but that you can see OCD and struggling with OCD and overcoming OCD written into the magic of my world.
So you realize this after you finished your draft, or you realize it while the middle of your draft that this was your, you know, your mental health being written onto page?
It was afterwards. I didn't I don't even call it writing. For me, it's weird because, like I said, I was always watching movies in my eyes. In my head, I'm transcribing, because I really just can watch my subconscious or whatever play out this story for me. I see the characters interact and I'm just typing and transcribing. It doesn't even feel like I'm mentally having to drag up what comes next. It's just already been placed there for me by my mind. And I just transcribed. So when I finished and looked back, I could see, I mean, it's a big spoiler, so I can't give away where the mental health really came in, but it wormed its way in there in a way that wasn't noticeable to me until I finished and saw that the whispering of the stars brought up OCD checking, and that an evil monster in the book is, you know, a physical manifestation of OCD. Because a thing that I always say is, I grew up reading fantasy novels. I was prepared to slay dragons. I was not prepared for real life and how hard the pressures of society are, and bullying, and, you know, your own brain being a bully. And so I was able to turn that tangible in my book and make it something that can be dealt with.
Now, for those people who don't know, could you tell us the type of OCD, or is it the perfectionism that's haunting?
I mean, for me, it's a lot of perfectionism. It's a lot of existentialism. And the hard thing with OCD is, as soon as you beat one kind of it, it comes up in a new way. And so, you know, you can finally overcome, say, germophobia, and you don't need to wash your hands 10 times before leaving the house or cooking or something. But then your OCD is going to come back in a different way. For example, suddenly you might need to check the stove 10 times, which is, you know, the things people think about. But the hard thing with OCD is it's very misunderstood. So some people don't realize that it's not always physical manifestations. It is perfectionism, or it's obsessive thoughts. Some people can have a thought pass through their head like clouds, and for people with OCD, the clouds are stuck there and you cannot get sun for days or weeks or months. And it's really hard and it's damaging, and some people just don't understand. They see it as like, oh, my pens have to be in order, and it's like, no, it's being stuck on these existential questions. It's being stuck on perfectionism. It is feeling like you are never enough, and having your brain be the voice of the outside world that's maybe telling you you're not enough, but that's stuck inside your own head. And that's really hard, especially for teens who are, and tweens who are, you know, trying to make it in the world and figure out who they are. And so, like I said, a big passion for me is helping in whatever small way I can.
Does this cause anxiety or depression then for yourself?
I mean, definitely anxiety. I think, you know, in the world we live in, anxiety is a huge, huge thing for so many people because we live in a stressful world. I mean, you know, there's climate change, there's war, there's political unrest everywhere. And so, you know, even without having OCD, there's going to be anxiety. And then you add OCD into the mix, and, you know, it's hard to sit in the moments of joy and especially with having a book come out, to not let myself just be constantly, oh my God, what if it doesn't go well? What if everyone hates me? And instead think, okay, I'm having a book published. That's exciting. So anxiety is something I deal with and have definitely gotten better at dealing with, especially through writing. I find ways to relieve stress. I mean, running is great for me. I love dancing. I love singing it out. I find, you know, doing physical things that help me get out of my head and into my body is the best way to beat anxiety.
Wow, we're glad that you're managing to handle and cope
Yeah.
with this. It must be, is it more intense pressure because being a teen, or is it also because of the fact of your role in society as, you know, an entertainer and writer now?
I think it's a mix of both. I think being a teen for everyone is hard. And, you know, I think stories alleviate the hardness a little bit, but definitely being an entertainer and having what I'm passionate about, being, you know, bringing joy and bringing entertainment to people is really hard because what if they're not entertained? What if I'm not good enough? What if I don't make people laugh? What if I make people cringe instead? And the thing to really focus on for me that I find is that if someone's not entertained, that's fine. They're just, everyone has different preferences. Everyone has different things they like. Someone doesn't like my acting or doesn't like my story. That doesn't mean that someone else isn't going to. I myself have preferences. Everyone has things that they like or dislike. And in a world of so much cyberbullying and cyberbullying being seen as okay because it's through a screen and whatever, they're just joking and they're teasing, it's important to not let words get to you, which is incredibly hard and much easier said than done. But, you know, being an entertainer, I'm here for the people who are entertained. And if they're not entertained, they can turn the channel or put the book down and move on to something that does entertain them.
So what keeps you going? Because, you know, a lot of people who start like this type of career at a very young age tend to quit or burn out. So what keeps you going and not say, you know what, I'm going to do some completely, you know, something completely and different and not be, I want to say, like a lucky Hank.
I mean, I think what keeps me going, I wish I could pinpoint it. I think I've obviously had moments where I'm like, this is too much, this is too hard, why am I doing this? But I always come back to, you know, the girl in me who just wants to tell stories. It's something I've wanted since I was born, really. I can't pinpoint a moment when I realized that's what I wanted. I've just always had this burning need in me to tell stories. And I don't think that's something that would go away if I stopped. It would be something that would just fester. And a lot of people in this industry say, you can only really do this if you can't do anything else, and you just need to do it because it's a hard industry. It wears you down. And for me, yes, it wears me down, but there is nothing that brings me more joy and makes me feel more fulfilled than telling stories.
Most excellent. And you mentioned that you had to split this up into two books. but from what I understand, it's going to be more than 2 books, isn't it?
Yes. So it's originally was going to be a 6-book series, but now that I've split up the first one, it's a 7-book series. So the Last Montmorency saga will have 7 books, and it will also have 4 spin-offs of characters in the story to tell their backstory that will be released kind of alongside all these books so that you can get all the backstory info you need before moving on to the next one. And I'm also planning to write many, many more series in this broken world that I've created. The Last Montmorency saga will be the last chronological series that I write, but I'm going to be moving backwards through time with all my series to tell the history of the wars and revolutions that shaped the world of the Last Montmorency saga, and how the earth shattered.
Now, it sounds quite an ordeal. Is writing going to be your new career, or acting is still going to be your primary career then?
I mean, I've always been a person who believes that I can do all the things if I set my mind to it. I started ballet late and I got really into it, and I had so many people telling me that I couldn't do acting and ballet and I'd have to choose because both of them are things that require so much time. And I just said, no, I'm going to do both because I love both. And I did. And so with writing, adding that into the mix, yes, it makes for some sleepless nights and it makes for some stress and less downtime. But I love acting and I love writing, and hopefully someday I'll be acting in something that I wrote. And I don't think I'm willing to let anything go just because it's hard. So I'm gonna keep doing it for as long as I can.
That is excellent here. And one of the things I forgot to ask you on your series on this book, is it more fantasies or is it more science fiction?
So originally it was going to be a hard sci-fi novel with absolutely no fantasy. And then as I got into it, I realized none of this is scientifically possible because there are islands floating in outer space. That doesn't make sense without magic. So how I describe it is it's a space opera with magic in its bones.
Wow, that is interesting. No wonder why you're gonna have like 6, 7 books in this series.
It's an extensive saga, but I'm very excited to tell it all.
So you're one of those people who already have like all those post-it notes on the wall, and your entire timeline of all this, how this story is going to unfold.
I have a nice big bulletin board up on my bedroom wall that I just, if I wake up at 3 a.m. with an idea, I can scribble it down and tack it up there. So it's a little bit messy, but it makes sense to me. And of course, my notes app is just overflowing with ideas. But I have about, I think, 5 series at this point actually fully fleshed out, and more coming.
I know it's too early to ask, but we could always dream. Put it on your dream board. Do you hope someday to finish these series and then hopefully make it into movies or a streaming series, TV series or whatever it would be?
Absolutely. I'm an actor, so I obviously want to turn it into something that even I could maybe act in. So I've got to pump out the books fast. But definitely I want to see it on the screen. Writing is a very visual process for me. Like I said, I sort of just watch this movie inside my head and transcribe it onto the page. So the world of Stars and Swashbucklers is very, very visual. And I think if I got it right, it would translate really well to the screen. So that's definitely something I want to see happen.
Most excellent. Wow, you are one busy person. So let me sum up of everything that's all your projects. I want to say Monster High 2 should be coming out because it should be in post-production right now. So it should hopefully, I want to say this summer, but don't.
It's coming out this year.
Yeah, something like that. Lucky Hank is now streaming and playing on AMC right now. And you could tell us when is your book Stars and Swashbucklers coming out?
So it's releasing April 4th, literally everywhere you buy books. I always suggest to get indie bookstores to order it in and to ask your local library to get it in. I'm a huge lover of the library. I'm a huge lover of indie bookstores and just physical bookstores in general. So you can get it on Amazon. If you don't have access to a bookstore near you, but you can also get it at Barnes and Noble if you're in the States. And I have a live launch at Chevalier's Books in Los Angeles, which is the oldest indie bookstore in LA, on April 4th. So if anyone is in Los Angeles, feel free to come by and check it out.
Most awesome. You certainly have a bright future ahead of you, Lilah. Thank you very much for carrying this conversation, and keep busy.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.